Hello. Thank you for watching this. My name is Laura Boy. I was asked to share a little bit about my research career, some of my interests for advocacy and equity, and some ideas I've taken for how I've gone from academia to different institutions with different research projects. So anyway, it's easier to describe when I share some slides. So just give me a second here to share these slides with a smooth, seamless transition where I don't do anything wrong. Oh, God, that was stressful, wasn't it? Um, this is the fifth time I've tried to record this presentation, in all honesty. So let's just be kind to ourselves. I also know that some of the people who will be watching this have just done their own presentations. So please take a breath, be comfortable. The spotlight is on me for a second here. I'll keep this presentation decently short, around 20 minutes. Yeah, so here's the objectives. I want to be able to help you frame your expertise as an established researcher in the context of supporting both yourself, your well-being, your loved ones' well-being, as well as the community that which you're from, that which you serve. So I want to highlight the importance of who the real experts are. For example, in my research, it's a lot of people living with dementia, those with different brain health issues. So highlighting those individuals of the expert of all the research we do. And then I want you to learn a little bit about some global opportunities for research, careers, collaborations, things that have helped me, basically come from where I am to wherever the heck I am now. A bit of a disclaimer. One of my PhD students is in the audience watching this right now. She just did a 3-minute thesis. I bet it was incredible, standing ovation. She knows that sometimes I swear, sometimes I say things flippantly, or will make jokes that are on maybe not, the best side of where we should be making jokes. So a disclaimer is I'm a human. My heart is good. I apologize if I offend anybody. I'm easy to Google, reach out if you want clarification on anything or yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? Just like dementia is a really heavy topic. And if I say something flippantly, it's not because my heart is not completely committed to this cause. It's because that's just my form of communication. Enough about that. So my name is Laura Boy. I'm a social gerontologist. I'm a brain health researcher. I come from Vancouver Island in Canada on the west coast side of Canada. I've been in the UK since March 2020. Great month to travel, great month to move. And yeah, I'm university now. So I'm a little bit up north. That's my life partner, my cat Nala. There's two things I want to point down to on this slide here. So the one slide, the Global Brain Health Institute, that was a fellowship an opportunity I had after my PhD. I graduated my PhD in 2018. I received it. I then moved from Montreal in Canada to Dublin, where I completed a 1-year fellowship with the Global Brain Health Institute. I'm flagging this for individuals in the room who are maybe thinking about a research career, but maybe aren't in the traditional maybe stage of life, or maybe just focus on research, that they might want to do something a little bit more on the fringes of things. So this fellowship, for example, that I went to, I lived in Ireland for a year. I spent my time with about 30 different brain health experts, brilliant people, from people that are, geneticists to neurologists to people who focus on dance and Parkinson's to music and dementia. So a whole cohort of unique individuals, but our one main thing is around equity and dementia. So that is an example of a fellowship you could look into. I don't know the specific fellowship for whoever's watching this, but whatever you're interested in, there will be a fellowship out there that has to do with that. It just requires a little bit of digging, knowing the keywords to try and get yourself sorted. And of course, these applications, they're competitive, and often they'll pay your salary. They range in time, but sometimes they're 6 weeks, sometimes a year. But there's really great opportunities that kind of springboard your career to the next level where you want it to go. This is just a bit of context to say why I'm a gerontologist. The population is aging. It's aging for all high-income countries. It's a big deal. There. And this slide, I was too quick there. I'm really sorry. I got too excited. Basically, because this slide has been my life for like 17 years. Not that long, I'm kidding. But what I'm trying to say here is the biggest risk factor for dementia is human aging. So as the population ages, that means that there's more rates of dementia in the world. We'll go into a little bit more detail in a few slides here, but that's basically why I'm saying that. In this slide, I made, I don't think it needs to be copyrighted. You can literally Google Simpsons meme creator or something like that, and then you can make something like this. I made this a few years ago because literally like half of my life is telling people dementia is not a normal part of aging. I'm exaggerating there, but like every Uber driver I go into, if I talk about my research, I try not to, but sometimes I get so excited and sometimes they're excited. They'll talk about dementia being a normal part of aging, and I'm going to get dementia because my family has dementia in it. Like everybody's family probably has dementia in it. Mine definitely has lots of dementia in it. It's not a brag or anything, but like yeah, so basically, dementia is not a normal part of aging. Dementia happens because of many different issues that happen both from the environment, from within you. It's not a normal thing that we can theoretically imagine an existence where dementia is not even, it's a thing of the past, right? Um, yeah, we'll go into that in a second. So dementia is an umbrella term. If you saw Julie's PhD presentation, her 3-minute thesis, she'll have talked about dementia being an umbrella term and Alzheimer's being the most common form of dementia. Just going to say big numbers of dementia, right? Right now, there's 55 million people with dementia. There's more people living in dementia than there are Canadians living with dementia. My apologies. And this number is going to double and it's going to triple by 2050. And dementia does not hit everyone equally. In my presentations, I often will speak about, for dementia presentations focused on how dementia is racist, sexist, classist, and ageist. You're more likely, risks of dementia increase if you're from a racialized community, if you're a woman, if you're from a low socioeconomic status, racist, classist, age, and if you're an older adult, right? So the older you are, the greater your increase goes. For Canadian context, I just wanted to point out, so one of the racializing communities that's prevalent in Canada is Indigenous communities, of course. So if you look at the prevalence of dementia in Indigenous communities and you look at the projections, basically the projections are greater for other white populations. The reasons for this, of course, are because of social determinants of health, where individuals who have more or lower social determinants of health are going to be at greater risk of dementia. How this looks in real life is basically if you're First Nations and you are living in poverty and you have different structural, issues going on, then statistically speaking, and remember this is only statistically speaking, this isn't saying this for sure is going to happen, then your increased rates are higher. And so what that means for interventions and for research and for us giving back to the communities that we serve, we have to focus in on those populations and make sure that we're developing interventions that support them the most. Because if they're harder hit, it's of course it's an equity issue. So the individuals in the room today, I don't know what you study. I don't know what your passion is, but maybe it's intimate partner violence or sport injury, physiotherapy, whatever it is, whatever community you need to give back to or that you do give back to, it's always important to look at, who is hardest hit in that community. I know, blah, 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 preaching to the choir with some of these things, right? But like, it's important to say. So dementia is expensive. Yeah, it's the 17th largest economy if dementia was a country. So if we can do something to support dementia, to basically make it a thing of the past, which is a big wish, right? Then maybe what could we do with all that money, right? Like who could we bail out as far as like, there's big world problems that could be solved. These are just some slides about the symptoms of dementia. There's better information online if you Google it. And again, like I said before, you're more likely to get dementia if you're a woman. You're twice as likely to get it if you're a woman, and you're twice as likely to be a caregiver of someone with dementia if you're a woman. So it affects women more. I put this slide in here because people often ask or they'll just assume I'm going to get dementia because there's a genetic link because my mom or my dad has dementia. In the vast majority of cases, Alzheimer's disease, again, the biggest form of dementia, is not inherited. So Yeah, you probably, if you have Alzheimer's disease in your family, which is what most of us have, the genetic link to it is not that strong. If you have a rarer form of dementia, your family will probably know if you have a rare form of dementia. Um, then sometimes the genetic link is there. But again, it's not always that strong. It's a multiple of factors. It's not just one genetic switch that you turn on and off to get certain forms of dementia. Okay, so what are the solutions? Dementia is grim. It's a massive issue. Often people will be like, there's a cure for dementia coming along. I put the Viagra little clip from the BBC there because that came out a few years ago. Um, and then I had to present about, dementia and brain health. And no, Viagra is not a cure for dementia. There's another drug out. It's really difficult to pronounce, so I just call it Banana Lab. I know that's not right, but to me that's really funny, so I always do it. That there's medication that will help the symptomology of dementia, so will help with disease modifying treatments for it, but there isn't anything yet that will cure dementia. Um, and we don't necessarily have anything coming down the pipeline soon, right? So our biggest option right now is prevention or risk, as well as symptom management if you do get dementia. So if you do get dementia, it's important to understand that it's not a death sentence. Okay, so and this is for individuals who are watching who maybe are worried about dementia for themselves or a family member or however it may be. There's an entire massive community of people living with dementia, supporting each other, supporting care partners and families of people with dementia. The biggest organization is Dementia Alliance International. They're a terrific group of people. They meet all over the world on Zoom, sometimes in person. Many people in this group living with dementia have gone on to get advanced degrees, become researchers themselves. Some people help me with my research, tell me when it's a good idea or a bad idea, 100%. There's people in there that have become authors. Like, honestly, it's just to highlight that living with dementia isn't always as it's depicted in the media. There's this saying, you meet one person with dementia, you meet one person with dementia. That's all it is. But as far as reducing your risk of dementia, what the literature shows now is that approximately 45% of all dementia cases are attributed to potentially modifiable lifestyle factors. We'll go over them in a couple of slides here. But yeah, basically, awareness is key. So, awareness of if you do get a diagnosis of dementia, it's not always going to be the end of the world. There's so much post-diagnostic post-diagnostic support happening. This is why I moved from Canada to the UK, because I was told about all the amazing post-diagnostic support that's happening here. Not saying that it's terrific, but like there's lots of good things that can be done. So awareness is key, both living with dementia, not always a death sentence. Even that sounded grim, sorry. And awareness is key is that dementia is not a normal part of aging. There's lots of things that can be done to reduce your risk of dementia. And then inclusion is key. So as researchers, we really have to think about inclusion, and dementia is absolutely no exception. There's a huge number of studies that are growing and growing, showing that the biology of dementia is different in whites and in non-whites. So the biology being what happens in your brainium, right? So we need to understand the differences between these to create tailored diagnostic interventions and approaches for treatment. The only way we can do that, though, right, is if we collect the data. And if we don't have the data, if all the data is with white, high income individuals, high SES educated, all that, then we're only going to get one segment of brains that we're looking at. And, that's not good. That's 100% not equity, especially considering what I said before about two-thirds of all cases of dementia coming from low and middle income countries in the future. So an individual from the Global Brain Health Institute looked to increase representation of African Americans in all SES backgrounds in autopsy cohorts. So that's looking at donated brains. So previously, almost all the donated brains, 90%, are of white, educated, high SES people. And this professor went in there and was like, and basically trying to do something about it. So absolutely brilliant research if you wanted to Google it. But it's one example of how researchers are looking at the communities that we're a part of and looking at inclusion and thinking, you know what, we can solve these problems with the researcher skills and solutions that we've been developed with our education. So these are the 14 risk factors. I'm just going to gloss over this because I show it in another slide in a second. I'm going to point out here that the real public appetite for learning about brain health and about dementia and education has increased. So you can see these are global citations for peer-reviewed literature, and you can see the increase at 2015, just like right away, there's this big steep. And I bet whatever angle, whatever focus you have for your research, there's going to be a trend like that. So it might not be exactly what you were looking at right now, but if you pull back and look at the trend, it's a good way to get at to be like, how can I apply what I know to help, the most amount of people, if that's what you do. And if not, how can you learn the most about an area that is of the most interest to the community of that which I'm a part of? However you want to swing it, right? So brain health is the leading cause of death and disability globally. That's the World Health Organization. And brain health encompasses dementia, right? But brain health isn't just dementia. I'm going to skip over this one. Brain health is all of these things. And this is just a selection of some of the things with brain health. I use this slide from the Women's Brain Project. It's a really beautiful representation of sex specific, so female and male sex specific brain health issues, right? So if you look on the right, sorry about the gendered color, but ADHD, autism, dyslexia, stuttering, early onset schizophrenia is on the right, as well as Parkinson's and ALS. And then on the left for females, later onset schizophrenia, anorexia, bulimia, MS, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and some forms of dementia. So taking that into consideration, really how brain health affects and manifests in both, like in all sexes, is different. And I apologize, we don't have enough data on non-binary individuals and sex differences in the brain. So, I mean, that's an up and coming area of research. I know individuals that are really interested in that, but I don't have the data yet to present there. So my apologies. It's not because I don't, it's not an important topic. So factors linked to dementia risk. You can see there's early life, midlife, and later life. The area that I really care about is young adulthood. So individuals between the ages of 18 to 39. You can see we have all these factors here, like high cholesterol, depression, hearing impairment for midlife. Those are things that you can intervene for to reduce your risk of dementia. So even something as simple as asking your parents to get their hearing checked, or you go get your hearing checked. I got my hearing checked. Um, yeah, and I don't have hearing problems. I just need to listen better. But if you look at young adulthood, there's no variables there. So when we're talking to young people who care about their brains, which is most of us, right? Um, and I am on the late end of young adulthood, but hey, here we are. But when you talk to them about caring about their brains, people are primed. They want to know what to do. Lots of people are living with diagnoses. They're taking mood stabilizing medication. They perhaps had a serious traumatic brain injury in their life. They want to know how can they reduce their risk of dementia later on in life. This is another slide looking at dementia risk, but we'll leave it for now. So young adults and brain health, it's the research that I've been doing the most for the last 3 years is basically looking at what do young adults know about their brains, what do they know is good or bad for their brains, and what are they not sure about, right? So this is a live illustration from a focus group we did in October a couple years back. We asked individuals, those questions, and they came up with really interesting questions. They wanted to know, how does birth control affect their brain health? How does being on an antidepressant affect their brain health in the future and now? In regions where cannabis was legal, they wanted to know, is cannabis good or bad for your brain? And I mean, fair, right? So there's a real appetite. So what my co-lead of that study, Professor Francesca Farina at the University of Chicago, and I did is we took this information. We gathered a group of 30 individuals, mostly senior Atlantic fellows from the Global Brain Health Institute, all experts from around the world, all focusing on different areas of the brain. So like in this picture, we got people focused on genetics, nutrition, the retina, brain imaging. Like there's people that do a bunch of stuff, right? And then policy and so we got everyone together and we developed a consensus paper about brain health risk for young adults in life, in the ages that I said, 18 to 39. And you can see we took the risk factors that were in that old slide that I showed you a couple minutes ago that didn't have anything about young adults. And we developed this, an entire list of potential risk factors and all the literature that surrounds those risk factors for young adults. Francesca right now is leading a brilliant systematic review on this area. Yeah, and soon we'll have that publication. Is anyone interested in? If you want this publication here, just let me know, or it's easy to find. From that data, we also developed a survey, and we translated the survey with regional leads. Again, working with the people who are actually there, like Francesca. Like I'm not going to go somewhere and get 200 survey responses in a place I don't know. So we work with regional leads. We have the survey translated to 11 different languages. We're aiming for 5,000 responses, and it will be the first survey of its kind focused globally on how young adults understand their brain health, what are the risk factors for brain health, and what would they do for an intervention to basically reduce the risk of dementia later on in life. So potentially we could have a generation with really, you can hope, right? Low rates of dementia, as low as possible. Okay, so that was my presentation. That was all that yammering that I did. Let me get out of this screen share. Let's see if I can do that without doing anything too embarrassing. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to stop talking now because it's been, 22 minutes and that's enough of everything. But basically, I wanted to show, a little bit about my research career, some of the projects I'm involved in, have been involved in, how I've used opportunities outside of academia, such as a fellowship in another country to leverage my connections and have a deeper understanding of the issues that I feel committed to as a researcher and as a human, of course. So if any of that hits home with you, awesome. If not, I hope you were on your phone and you weren't paying attention because I wouldn't want to waste your time. Anyway, okay, have a great one. Thank you so much. Bye.